So joining me now is Republican Congressman Carlos Curbelo of Florida. He is working on bipartisan legislation in the House to ban bump stocks, and he joins me now. Congressman, thanks for coming on.
Chuck, good evening from just outside the House chamber.
Yes, I was just there myself. I had a wonderful exchange and conversation with Congressman Scalise. So good to have him back around the House. Let me ask you, do you want this to be something we vote on in Congress, or do you think it's just fine if ATF decides to regulate bump stocks out of the law?
No, I definitely think that this prohibition, this ban on these bump stocks should be codified. I think we need to send a strong message, Republicans and Democrats together, which is why our legislation, filing it together with Seth Moulton, a Democrat from Massachusetts, is going to be not just bipartisan, but perfectly bipartisan. We want to have an equal number of Republicans and Democrats on it. We think we need to send a strong message that, yes, we are willing to stand up and respond to this obvious and flagrant circumvention of existing law. As you said earlier, Todd, these automatic weapons, they're illegal. No one has a right to have or fire an automatic weapon. These devices turn legal weapons into illegal weapons, and that's what we have to stop.
Do you think that there is fear on Capitol Hill of holding any vote on any gun regulation?
I don't know exactly how this is going to play out. I will tell you this, Chuck. My office has been flooded by calls from fellow Republican House members who are anxious to get on the bill. They thought we were filing it today. They wanted to be on it immediately. We're probably going to end up filing it tomorrow. So there's definitely a lot of momentum here, and I think our leaders are already responding to that growing momentum inside the House Republican Conference.
What do you say, Congressman Scalise, to me, and you probably heard it in the clip, he is concerned about the slippery slope, and he even said, hey, Minority Leader Pelosi says she doesn't want to stop here. If the argument is made that voting to ban this is the beginning of a slippery slope, will that doom your bill?
Steve speaks with a lot of moral authority, obviously, on this issue because he is a victim of gun violence, and we're so thrilled to have him back. He's a wonderful and legislator, but I think on this one he's got it wrong. We really have to do the right thing. This is not about a slippery slope. We all have different ideas about what gun policies should look like in this country, but we should take this case. It's obvious that our laws failed in this case, and we should do the right thing. And no, passing this law, or had this law been in effect before, it maybe would not have prevented this tragedy, but certainly it could have mitigated it. Maybe fewer people would have died. Fewer people would have been wounded. That makes a difference.
Hey, what happens to somebody who already owns one of these if your law passes?
Our goal is to prohibit these. I am not a fan of grandfathering such a deadly device that can be used to massacre dozens of people, as we saw last weekend. So in my view, the bill hasn't been filed yet, but in my view, there should be no grandfathering. These devices should be prohibited. No transactions, no possession, none of the above.
Congressman, it's your bill. You say it hasn't filed yet. Is somebody arguing for a grandfather clause?
Well, I do have a co-sponsor. I'm a fellow original sponsor. I'm working with Seth Moulton, and I don't want to speak without consulting him, but I'm pretty sure he'd be fine with everything I just told you.
So if it's not grandfathered in, how do you get rid of the ones that are already out there? I mean, I've had some people email me concerned that while we debate this, giving a high profile to this accessory will actually create a run of people buying this accessory. How do we get it off the street?
I think that's already happened, Chuck. I've heard that hundreds, if not thousands, have been sold in recent days. We're going to leave that to ATF. Congress passes laws. It's up to the agencies to implement them, to figure out how to actually carry out these laws. But we want to send a strong message that we respect existing law, that there should be no automatic weapons out there. And the bottom line is that these devices turned legal weapons into illegal weapons, semi-automatic weapons into automatic weapons, and that is unacceptable.
What else do you think that Congress should look at in order to apparently, first of all, do you think it should be the federal government's role to figure out a way to keep the United States from being the leader of the world when it comes to gun massacres?
I think there's certainly a role, Chuck, and I think there's room for both strengthening, respecting Second Amendment rights and also taking a common sense approach to restricting those rights, just like we restrict free speech and all sorts of other rights that Americans are guaranteed by the Constitution. Last Congress, Seth Moulton and I introduced another piece of legislation that had it been in effect before the Pulse nightclub tragedy could have prevented that. It has to do with people who have been under FBI investigation for ties to terrorism within the last 5 years,
right,
allowing the government some time to block the sale of a firearm, of course guaranteeing that person due process, the possibility of going to court. So I think there are a lot of sensible ideas out there that do not threaten American Second Amendment rights, but that will help keep the public safe, and that's the sweet spot we're looking for. This is a small step if we manage to get this done, Chuck, but I don't think it should be discounted. It will be significant. It will be the first time in decades that Republicans and Democrats work together in favor of sensible gun policy in this country.
All right, but you'll work together to codify something that was already in law, a ban on automatic weapons.
Well, except that these devices are currently legal, and people are purchasing them on the internet as $99. So it's a loophole in the law. We would be closing a loophole, but certainly what we're trying to do is end that circumvention, and that flagrant circumvention of existing law.
All right, Congressman Curbelo, Republican from Miami. I'll leave it there. Good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Good to
sharing
see
your
you.
views.